everyone. Welcome to today's podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Roberta Westbrook, and thank you for joining us once again at the Campus for All Animals, the Houston SPCA. We have another informational show for you today. We are going to be introducing you to the Houston SPCA's Wildlife Center of Texas. If you didn't know, the Houston SPCA has a wildlife center that focuses on rehabilitating and releasing native wildlife from Texas. And so we want to tell you a little bit about that department and that program and all the wonderful things that they do for our native wildlife. If you have any questions, please feel free to submit those and we can give you those answers. And in the meantime, I'd like to introduce you to our pet of the week this week. This is Waldo. Isn't he cute? Waldo is an about 4-year-old neutered male shepherd mix. Very, very handsome, unique look. He is a wonderful dog. He loves to play, loves to chew toys, very active. He would make someone a wonderful family pet. He's just a goofball. He loves toys, and loves playing with people. So please come on down and visit with Waldo and visit with all of the animals that we have available in our adoption center. We are open 7 days a week, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. There's no appointment necessary. You can come visit with dogs and cats and puppies and kittens and birds and rabbits and guinea pigs and all the wonderful animals that we have available. So please come on down. So what I'd like to do is talk to you about the Wildlife Center of Texas, which is a wonderful organization here on the campus of the Houston SPCA. And the purpose of the Wildlife Center of Texas is to take in injured or ill native wildlife and to use our resources, our wonderful volunteers, our medical professionals and staff to help rehabilitate these native wildlife. And the most important thing is that we want to get these wildlife back where they belong, in the wild. So whatever we need to do to make that happen, we will try to make that happen. So does anyone have any questions about the Wildlife Center of Texas?
So what do you guys actually do? Do you rescue them? Do we adopt them out?
Oh, those are great questions. So when we get wildlife, what do we do with them? So there are two ways essentially that wildlife can come into the Wildlife Center of Texas. One way is that if you, as a member of the general public, sees an injured native wildlife animal and you want to give that animal help, you can call the Houston SPCA's Wildlife Center of Texas at 713-861-WILD, and you can call and speak to someone. They can give you advice about how to best proceed with caring for that animal and getting that animal into safe hands. And if it's a situation where you're unable to bring the animal to us, which is preferable, if you can bring the animal to us, to the Wildlife Center, that would be preferable. But in cases where you're unable to do that, we could always send an ambulance service out to where you are. We do have a 24-hour ambulance service, and those ambulance drivers are able to help rescue those native wildlife and get them into safety here at the Wildlife Center of Texas. Now, once they're here on our campus, they will be evaluated by certified wildlife rehabilitators. And what our team will do is evaluate them for injuries, illness. If the injuries and illnesses are treatable and we feel like they have a great prognosis and we're going to be able to get them out into the wild, they will do that. And so we provide proper nutrition. Right now, it is the season for bottle babies. So we have hundreds of orphaned opossums and squirrels, and the team is working really round the clock trying to make sure that these animals get proper nutrition so that they can grow. So providing nutrition is big. Then if they have medical illnesses or issues, then our veterinary staff can help to assist. And sometimes that means doing surgeries. Sometimes that means doing x-rays or blood work to make sure that we can identify the illnesses and get them the proper treatment. So we'll do everything that we can to make sure that these guys get well and can get on to living a long, healthy life.
And do they have a place to learn how to fly again if there's wildlife that has an injured, wing?
That's a great question. If we have a flight bird, one that comes in and maybe it has an injured wing or an injured leg, before we release that bird into the wild again, into nature, we want to make sure that they can fly. We want to make sure that they're going to be able to take care of themselves, that they're going to be able to catch prey. And so what we do is we have an outdoor flight complex. We have a series of mews that we can put these birds in, and we can make sure that they can fly around, that they can reach the proper altitude, and that they are able to hunt for themselves, that they're able to eat for themselves, and that they are strong enough to be back out in the wild. So yes, we definitely want to make sure that before we release them, that they're in the best health possible to be able to take care of themselves once they're out there.
And what is considered wildlife, or what are the common type of animals that we see through the Houston area?
Yeah, so when we're talking about a wildlife animal is an undomesticated species of animal. So I do want to clarify that a wildlife animal is not necessarily a stray animal. So it's not the same thing as a stray cat or a stray dog. These are undomesticated species. So we're talking like examples: skunks, raccoons, opossums, squirrels, turtles, birds. These would be considered wildlife animals as opposed to pets that might have been lost or that are stray. So when these undomesticated species become injured or ill, those are the species that we take in here at the Wildlife Center of Texas. So if you are noticing that there's an injured wildlife animal, please don't hesitate to give the Wildlife Center a call. They can give you advice on how to proceed.
And we sometimes see bats in the Houston area. Do we contact the Wildlife Center as well, or do we have to contact another agency?
You know, that's a great question. The Wildlife Center of Texas takes in some very common native wildlife, and so and bats are included in that. Some of the most common native wildlife are opossums and squirrels and rabbits, blue jays, doves. These are some of the most common wildlife that we see. We do take in bats that members of the public bring to us, but I do want to caution you. We do not recommend that if you see a bat lying on the ground in your yard that you go pick it up and handle it. Remember, bats can carry rabies. It's very common that they carry rabies, and they're the most likely species to carry rabies in the Houston area. So we do not recommend that you handle bats directly or that you pick them up. If you notice a bat in your yard, please give us a call. We can help determine what your next step is. If you have already, handled the bat, have it contained, you can bring it right away to the Wildlife Center of Texas. But we prefer that you don't touch it at all. We don't want you to have any exposure to rabies. Rabies can be contracted through the bite or the saliva of an infected animal. So although we do accept them, please steer clear. Keep your other pets, your cats and dogs, also away from the bats that you might find in your yard, and give us a call and we can help you.
And you mentioned baby season, so we're going to see a lot of baby squirrels, on the ground and stuff. When do we know when to bring them in, or, should we automatically, if we see a baby squirrel, pick it up?
That's a great question, because sometimes baby squirrels may fall out of the nest, or, they may be found on the ground. And so the first thing that we do is we tend to want to pick them up and bring them to the Wildlife Center of Texas or bring them into our home. But squirrels can easily be re-nested, and oftentimes their mom will come back and get them. So before you take the squirrel, if you notice that it's injured, then go ahead and bring it to the Wildlife Center of Texas. You notice maybe there's a cut or bleeding or, some sort of injury, a broken leg, an injured tail. Those would be signs that you should rescue the squirrel and bring it to the Wildlife Center of Texas. But if the squirrel looks healthy, if it's a baby and it just looks healthy and it looks like maybe it just got displaced from the nest, this would be a time where you want to get a basket from your home. If you have like a laundry basket that has holes in it, and to provide proper aeration and drainage, you can put soft rags in there, towels, t-shirts, something that's very soft, and you can put the baby squirrel or squirrels back in this basket right in the area where you found it, or near where you see a nest if you see a nest. Oftentimes the mom will come back and retrieve the squirrel. So if it's uninjured, consider leaving it there. Give at least 2 hours for the mom to come back. And if you don't notice any activity within that time, you can bring it to the Wildlife Center of Texas. But certainly if you notice injury, bring it in right away.
If we do need to take them in, do we feed them any milk, while they're in our care?
So I don't recommend you feed the squirrels anything at all. So we want to be very careful about native wildlife, about what we feed them. And so don't attempt to give any milk or any liquids. We want to make sure there's some things that we need to examine first to make sure that the baby squirrel is able to take food well. For example, we don't want to feed any babies while they're really cold. So body temperature is really important for nutrition. And so if this baby squirrel has been out in the cold and the body temperature has dropped, then feeding them can actually be very, very dangerous. So please do not attempt to feed or give them any liquids at all. Just bring them right into the Wildlife Center of Texas, and we can make sure that we get them started on a good, healthy nutrition plan.
Occasionally we see opossums, come by our patio and they start hissing and, they terrify us a lot. Do they carry rabies too?
That's a great question. So sure, they may be scared as you approach them, and so you may see opossums hissing and open their mouths, and you could get bitten if you get too close. So please be very careful as you approach and avoid trying to approach some wild animals. But the good thing is that opossums do not carry rabies, so they're actually relatively safe as it relates to diseases that could potentially be spread to humans. And the reason is opossum's body temperature is really low. It's around 94 degrees, which is low compared to other wildlife species and mammals. And so they do not get rabies. And so that's a good thing, but please be cautious as you handle them if you're going to try to rescue one and bring it to the wildlife center.
Obviously we're going to leave them alone and not try to get bit by them, but do they provide any benefits to having them around our house?
Absolutely. Not only are they super cute to look at, but they do provide some benefits. So opossums can help to rid your yard and your environment from ticks. So if you have dogs or cats, ticks can be a problem in terms of carrying disease to people and pets. Well, opossums will eat the ticks. They can eat hundreds of ticks a day. So it's really, really good for them to get rid of the ticks. They will eat lice. They will eat roaches, rats, and mice. So it's actually a really good thing to have opossums around in your environment. It can actually keep your environment healthier for you and your pets. So they actually have lots of benefit, and they're pretty harmless.
And are there any tips to kind of coexisting with them, in our patio or in our home?
Yeah, so wildlife, sometimes there's a battle between humans and wildlife and how to coexist in the same spaces, but we really can do it, and we can do it safely. And so one of the things that we want to impress upon you is how to protect your home from wildlife or unwanted wildlife in your home. And the way that you can do that is wildlife are going to be attracted to food. So one of the things that you can do to protect your home and the space in your home so that you don't have that conflict between humans and wildlife is to make sure that you take out your trash and secure it properly. So when you are taking out your trash, instead of leaving your trash in open trash bins, make sure that you have or can purchase a wildlife-proof trash bin that has a nice tight fitting lid or maybe a lock on it. You can do that. Also, consider leaving your trash bins inside your garage until trash day and take them out kind of right at the last minute. Don't leave them sitting out. If you have food bowls for dogs or cats that are outside your home, these can attract wildlife too. So make sure that you're bringing in food bowls, water bowls, dog food and kibble. Don't leave it out in the ground because any of this can attract wildlife and could potentially create some conflict. So you want to make sure that you are providing good opportunity for wildlife. You can put bird feeders out, but you also want to make sure that those bird feeders are secure, that they're not on the ground, and they're up in the trees where the birds can get to them.
And then with our pets that, live inside and outdoor, can, dogs sometimes get attacked by pets? By these animals?
Oh, sure. If you have a dog that, likes to chase squirrels or opossums at night, you have to be careful because sometimes when these animals get in close contact with each other, fights can happen and injuries can happen. And we want to make sure that you keep your pets safe as well. So we don't want your dogs getting in fights with squirrels or raccoons or biting bats, because these could be instances where they get seriously injured or contract a disease. So make sure, one, that your pets are vaccinated against rabies and have all of their other core vaccines. Dogs and cats have their vaccines. But then if your pet does get in a fight, please make sure that you see your family veterinarian right away so that they can treat the wound and assess how big of a risk it is that your pet has contracted a disease from a wild animal. So you can coexist with pets and wildlife, but you want to make sure you keep your pet safe. And we want to protect the wildlife as well too. We want to make sure that they don't become injured as well. So if that happens, unfortunately, take your pet to the veterinarian and they can also help you proceed with next steps.
And with cats, they might be doing more harm to our wildlife. Is that true, or should we just kind of keep them inside?
You know, it's really a good idea to keep your pets indoors, keep your cats indoors. If you have a cat that goes indoor and outdoor, one of the things that we're concerned about is we want to protect our wildlife. So when we have outdoor cats, sometimes they may hunt and kill wildlife. So you may have outdoor cats that are hunting squirrels or birds and killing them and eating them. And even though that's somewhat of a natural thing, we do want to protect the wildlife. So something that you can do, if your cat is an indoor-outdoor cat and you're not able to keep your cat completely indoors, consider getting a collar for your cat that has a bell on it. When your cat has a collar with a bell and they're going outside, if they're trying to sneak up on wildlife, it's not going to work too well because they're going to have a bell on their collar. The wildlife is going to be alerted that there's a cat near and they're going to be able to escape. And so we do want to be able to protect the wildlife. Another thing that you can do is if you want to give your cat access to outdoor, but you also want to protect wildlife, consider building a catio. Consider that you can always enclose your backyard patio with doors and screens, and so this way your cat can still get outside, get some fresh air, see the wildlife, get the nice fresh air, and experience outdoors without directly interacting with wildlife. So there are certainly ways that we can make both sides happy in this situation. So if you can't keep your cat indoors, consider those two things.
And does our wildlife center ever, help during natural disasters or, man-made disasters too?
Yes, one of the most important things that our Wildlife Center of Texas does is participate in disaster response and oil spills. So when these accidents happen, when there's an oil spill, the Wildlife Center of Texas has staff that is both licensed in the state and federally to be able to rehabilitate not only mammals, but birds as well. And so this allows the staff to be able to train volunteers to treat victims of oil spills. And this means rehabilitating them, cleaning them, rehabbing them, and eventually getting them back out into the wild. And so not only can they rehab the animals, but they can help with setting up disaster response areas. They can travel, or they can do training right here on site. And so the Wildlife Center of Texas does a wonderful job at helping those disasters and those oil spills. It's a big part of what we do. And so hopefully those things don't happen, but when they do, we are there to help.
And we know we can, volunteer at the Houston SPCA adoption campus, walking dogs. Can we volunteer at the Wildlife Center too?
You can volunteer at the Wildlife Center of Texas. Absolutely. Please go to HoustonSPCA.org, click on the tab that says ways to give and volunteer, and think about volunteering in the Wildlife Center. There's so much that you can do to help them out. It's a busy season, as we mentioned, so this would be a perfect time for you to consider being a volunteer at the Wildlife Center of Texas. So we would be glad to have you as part of our extended family. Well, we thank you so much for joining us and getting more information about the Wildlife Center of Texas and everything that we do. So thank you. Consider supporting us. Go to HoustonSPCA.org/donate and consider helping us in any way that you possibly can. And that includes adopting Waldo if you think he's perfect for your family. So come on down and visit us again at our adoption center. We're happy to have you this weekend. Come on down with family and friends, and we will see you next week on the Pet Podcast.